Alright, so this is going to be the second part of the weight painting tutorial. This is going to be where we attach the rig to the mesh, and I've already done this about once or twice, and I run into more problems than I thought I would. Because this mesh is so complex with so many parts, I actually have to change a couple of things. So I know that I said the armature was done in the last video, but I'm actually going to add one more bone. And this is good because I can show you how to add bones post rigging. Like once everything's done, you can still add them if you need them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press E to extrude from this ball joint, and I'm going to add a clavicle bone. I don't always need this, but for this particular model, because of the overalls and because of all the extra parts, you're actually going to want to have it. And if your model is very simple and doesn't actually need this, you can just go ahead and skip this part. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this bone, or rather this nub at the end, this bone, Control P, wow, this bone, this nub, Control P, and I'm going to keep them connected. Then I'm going to select this bone and connect them. So I think that might have moved the hand a little bit. Just going to move that back into place. Sorry about that. I figured something like this might happen, but as it does. Okay, so now that all your bones are in place and you have a clavicle now, let's quickly just name that extra bone. I'm going to name this one as well. And then let's just head straight into the weight painting aspect. Okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to select the body, the entire mesh, and then you're going to select in pose mode the body, and then this. You're going to press A to select the entire rig. And so you want to select the mesh and then the rig in pose mode, so it turns blue and you get orange and blue. Control P and with automatic weights. Now once you do that, you're going to see that your mesh is weight painted, and if you have a simple mesh, this should work. But if you're like me and you have a mesh with 1,000 parts, you're going to notice that there are some issues. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can address issues like that, since that was probably the hardest part of weight painting for me. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to address is why the parts of this hair separate from the head. And so that is because weight painting is essentially assigning a value to every vertex on the model, telling it, I want this bone to control this much of this part of the mesh. And let me actually just show you what that looks like. If you open the armature menu, you'll see you have a pose, armature, and a body. And so if you select between them, you can go through the 3 different parts. So we're going to want to go to the body, and then we're going to want to go to weight paint. Now you can see that we want this entire head to be red because we want the head bone to have 100% influence on everything that's going on in the head, right? So because it doesn't, we have to fix that. Red means that the weight painting is 100% controlling, the bone is 100% controlling the mesh, and blue means there's no control. So now we can see these blue areas have no influence whatsoever, and so we need to add that influence in. And the way you do that, I found the easiest way is to go to edit mode, select the parts of the mesh that are lifting or don't have any influence, which would be all of these. Because they're loose parts and they're not connected to the mesh, like I can literally just drag them, they usually have weight painting problems. So you're going to want to select those, select everything, and you want to weight this to the part of the head that you're going to want to weight this to the bone that you want to control all the loose parts. So after you've done that, you're going to want to press the bone, you're going to want to go to this little 3-pronged icon, and you're going to want to go down to vertex groups and to head, and you're going to want to assign that. Now if I go back into weight paint mode, you can see now, if you press pose and then you go into body, you'll have the bone able to control it. Okay, so you can see that now it's all red, but you still don't have 100% control over it. So why is that? Well, that's usually because there is another bone exerting influence in areas you don't want. So let's go ahead and take a look. So if I select this neck bone, we see that there is influence we don't want happening. Same thing with this clavicle.r. It's controlling some things that it should not be controlling. So how we're going to deal with that is we're going to go back into edit mode, and we're going to select everything that should not be controlled by the neck bone, which I'm just going to be extra careful and select pretty much like all of the hair, because only the head should be controlling this, so only the head bone should have influence on this. And I'm going to find the neck in the vertex groups. I'm going to remove it. I'm also going to go to the clavicle because I saw that that had influence, and I'm just going to remove it. I'm going to go back into pose mode and switch over to weight paint. And we'll see now that we have 100% influence over the hair with the head bone. So that's great, we're almost there, but now we need to deal with this mouth thing that's going on. And that's happening because the neck bone has influence where it shouldn't on the mouth. So I'm going to go ahead and erase all of this. And I'm going to actually go back into edit mode, and I'm going to select the whole head. And I'm going to assign the whole head to that bone. And then I'm going to go back into weight paint. I'm going to erase any more influence that the neck has on the head, because it shouldn't have any. And you'll see, looks like I got rid of that by accident. You'll see that the head now has 100% influence, and the neck is controlling what it should be controlling. So let's check the rest of the body. We've got the shoulder, which is great. And if your character doesn't have overalls, this should work just fine. You can see that looks really good. But now we need to deal with the fact that there is an extra piece of clothing here that needs to be weighted properly to move with the shoulder. And the fact that this is controlling those two is like kind of absurd. So we're going to try and figure out why. So even though this bone seems to be controlling these, if we don't see an influence, like how could that be possible? How could this bone be controlling these if we don't see anything? There doesn't look like there's any influence, but that usually means bones further down the hierarchy have influence over these pieces. So let's look and see if that's the case. No. No. Oh! There it is. The thumb bone. I got you. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to go into edit mode, and I'm going to select all of this, because I don't even want to deal with it. I'm going to find that thumb bone, and I'm just going to remove it. I want to find that specific thumb bone that's the culprit, which if you go into armature, you can see the name of it, thumb1.r. And you're going to want to go back into edit mode, and you're going to want to find thumb1.r, and you're going to want to remove that. Do thumb2.r too. And now, magically, if we go back into weight paint, you're going to see that doesn't happen anymore, because we removed the culprit. Now we'll see if it doesn't seem to be doing it over here, which is great. Okay, so one of the main problems with weight painting is if you have extra pieces, they won't come with it. Like, why is this happening? Well, that's because you can see there's no influence on the top of the ribbon, so we need to go in and assign the full ribbon to this spine bone, which I named spine 3. So if we assign that, you'll see that it should be 100% weighted to that bone, but it's not. And why is that? This problem took me a long time to figure out too. It's because there's another bone exerting weight on it. The reason that it doesn't move 100%, anytime a mesh doesn't move 100% with the bone, that means there is another source of influence somewhere. So my assumption was it was spine 2, and it was. We can see that there's weight here. So we're going to want to go to spine 2 and remove it. So now, if we go into pose mode, you'll see that the ribbon has it's 100% influenced by only the upper spine, which is good. Okay, so now I want to deal with these overalls. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to get rid of, excuse me, that was wrong. We want to go to spine 2 down here. Actually, we want to get rid of it first from here. But we don't want the root bone to be influencing this. We want only the spine bones to be influencing the overalls because we want the overalls to move with the spine. And so we don't want another bone at the bottom influencing them when it doesn't need to be. So I'm going to go ahead and erase all of this. And now we see, now it doesn't look like a whole bunch has changed. But what we're going to want to do is we're also going to want to erase spine 2's influence on the upper spine, which should be spine 3's territory. I like to think about it in terms of territory, like I control these bones, and that's what I do. So I'm actually going to be more precise about this. I'm going to select okay, and then I'm going to have 100% influence on that for now. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the lower spine. I want it to have 100% influence on this part and these pieces, because these are going to lift up without influence. Okay, so I want this to be controlled by spine 2. So let's see if what I did helped. Okay, look, so we're almost there. There's a couple problems, but now the overalls have started to move with the spine bones. So in order to fix the couple problems we have left, we're going to go back into weight paint and see what's happening. Okay, so one problem is there needs to be a bit more influence over this. So I'm just going to decrease my strength because I don't like to work at 100%. Decrease my radius so I don't select anything else. I'm going to select these and I'm going to give them 100% influence. Let's see if that worked. Okay, so that seemed to work. This is a bit awkward. We want that to bend naturally, so I'm going to go into weight paint. And we see that there's a little bit of influence where we don't want there to be, so we're just going to erase that. And that's looking pretty good. Just to make this a little bit more natural, I'm going to add just a little bit more influence. Okay, so we've almost got it. If I remember, there was a problem back here. These don't have any weight right now, so we need to reassign their weight. I'm going to go to spine 3 and add 100% to that. What was this one? Okay, and we're going to assign 100% weight to that. And that's pretty good. That's pretty convincing. This is a very, very tricky weight painting issue, and I think I've just about got it. Okay. Now I'm going to check the hand to make sure. And I'm seeing one little issue where it looks like the ribbon is being pulled in a way that is not natural, so we're going to see why that is. So first we go in and we check what is going on. So obviously there's some influencing that is not supposed to be happening, and we see that this hand bone has some influence on this that we don't want it to have. So I'm going to go back into edit mode. I'm going to remove the hand's influence on the ribbon itself. I'm also going to do that to the other side because it probably mirrored over. And then I'm going to select it again, and I'm going to say, which bone do I want to influence this? And I want the forearm to influence it. Lower arm dot L. Okay, we're going to assign 100% weight to lower arm. We do the same thing to the other side. And that should have solved that problem. So let's see. That's good. I like that. Okay. So now we don't have any weird influence. And that looks good. You always want to check all the fingers. Looks like we got lucky with the fingers. Oh, how interesting. Pinky. Interesting indeed. So it looks like Pinky got some of the influence, which it should not have. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to find the fourth. That's what I named it. 4. So this is the left hand, so we want to remove fourth 1.L, fourth 2.L, and fourth 3. And then when we test it, this is fourth 1, by the way. You can see that here. It stops having influence. Perfect. Now we're going to need to check that again, because it probably happened on this side. Oh, it didn't. Interesting. Okay. All right, so the hands are good. This is good. That's cutting through a little bit. That needs to be fixed. Okay. So we have one more thing to deal with the overalls. What we're going to do is we're going to go into weight paint mode. And we're going to add weight to where the clavicle would be. So let's try that. Okay, and that didn't seem to work at all, so let's find out why. So we see that it has the weight, but it doesn't have the control it should because spine 1 is controlling it. Let's try this. There we go. Here I'm just removing the weight from the other side and adding it to the shoulder the same way you just saw me do. I skipped through this because it took me a little while to figure out that spine 2 had some influence that it shouldn't have had, and that was causing some weird bending. I also added in a little bit of weight down near the bottom just to make it so that it blended naturally. Okay, so the last thing I want to fix is what's going on with the legs. So the legs are pretty good, and if your mesh doesn't have a bunch of parts, this should also be working pretty well. But the main thing I want to address is pieces that kind of lift off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the thigh bone, and I'm going to erase everything up here. Same with this side. I don't want it to have any influence on this. And interestingly, you might want to make sure that your model before it was rigged doesn't have any clipping to begin with. Okay, so that looks good. There's no clipping through anything there. Same with this one. So it looks like we're almost good to go. The only thing I want to fix is this. This is a problem that often happens with skirts. The leg will go up through the skirt and That's really aggravating for some people like me. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to weight the skirt to go up with the leg. So the skirt itself is going to need a little bit more weight than it's being given right now. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to add in some weight here. We'll test to see if that worked. Almost. This has some needless weight that is causing a little bit of an issue. Just erase that. Okay, and that should be pretty good. Like if we look, it bends really nicely now. Looks like we're getting a couple stretching issues, so I'll just remedy those quickly. Okay. All right, and so we're almost done. Now we just need to do the same thing to the other side. We're going to take away some of this influence. Add it in. And I think that might have been it. Oh no, see, we got a little bit more. Looks like the other leg is actually the culprit this time. It's got a little bit of influence going on. I want to erase that. A little bit of weird bending here, so I'm just gonna add that in. And there we go. It should be just about good, I think. All right, so let's do one last test and see if our model is in working condition. That looks great. That looks great too. That looks really good. That looks good. That looks good. That looks good. I think in one of the next videos, I'm going to address a hair bone. For now, I'm going to, oh look, got one last little issue. It's always something. Naughty neck bone. Took influence again. So I'm going to make a separate video that addresses hair bones, because not everyone might need that right now. And then also facial rigs. I don't want to cover that just this moment, because it will take a lot longer. And I want to make sure I have all the time I need for that. So, there we go. All right, and so our model is done. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.